Turn it on.
Can I invite everyone to take a seat, please, without being too bossy? And it's my privilege to welcome you all, and we will begin with karakia, which is I don't know if you have it in front of you. You do. If we say it together, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, ki mara taratara ki tai, e hei ake ane te ata kura, e te au, he huka, he hauhu, te hei Māori ora. Kia ora tātou, welcome everybody. It's my absolute privilege to be chairing the first Community Wellbeing Committee meeting for this triennium of Horowhenua District Council. I just want to begin with apologies for today. The apologies that we have recorded here are Amajit Maxwell, Maggie Ryan, Neville Hey, Patrick Grinnell, Rawani and Nikora Townsend, Rosemary Ayres, Mayor Bernie, who is in Wellington today and can't be here, Quinton Moki, and Tracy White and Di Rump. So we will accept those apologies. And as we begin, are there any late items that are not on the agenda that people would like to have included or discussed today? I'm hoping that there aren't any, so we can get through the order of business, but if there are any, you are most welcome to table them now. Right. As is usual in a council meeting, we have the opportunity to declare conflicts of interest. I invite anybody who feels they have a conflict of interest for the Community Wellbeing Committee participation to do so now, but thank you. Don't appear to be any. And the other item of business that I'd just like to attend to is confirmation of minutes. One would expect that there would be minutes that we would accept and confirm today from the previous meeting, but as I think the last meeting of Community Wellbeing was perhaps in August last year, and this is a new training of council, where there are no minutes to accept today. Those minutes were received by council before they finished their training, and so these minutes from today will go to council and then come back to this committee at a later date. So we don't have any minutes to worry about today. As we are new, and it's been some time since we met, and I think there are a couple of new people at the table, and there are some people sitting over in the seats over here who are representatives of our networks. You're most welcome to join us at the table. I know there's probably a little bit of reluctance. You're welcome to stay there, or you're welcome to come to the table. From Youth Voice and from Access and Inclusion and from Manakai, please feel welcome, or stay where you are, whatever your comfort level is. Community wellbeing is about comfort. And just before I introduce our first agenda item formally, I just want to acknowledge community wellbeing as a critical and important committee of council. Today is our first meeting of this triennium, and we have the opportunity to build on the fantastic foundations that have been built up over the years. I want to acknowledge Mayor Bernie and Councillor Nina Horitapa and Clint Grimstone, who previously sat around this table, and Mayor Bernie has very generously given me the role of chairing this committee and this training, and I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Mitchell Katab, who has joined the committee as councillor representative. And just for your interest, I hope to, and I want to actually acknowledge our visitors today and council officers who are here. Thank you for your interest in the committee. Just for a little bit of background, as a new council, we have set about a direction of travel, if you like, or priority areas for this triennium, and you may or may not be aware of them, but just so that you know that for the wider council, we have three priority areas. One is going for growth, which means that we ensure that we enable growth, whether it be economic development or whether it be growth for residential placement in this district, because those are important ways. Investment is an important way to enable, I guess, wellbeing through many lenses. And of course, with that growth, we have the impact of O2NL and the revocation process that we're working through as a council, and that has an impact, I think, for every organisation also that sits around this table. We've talked about a future fit Horowhenua District Council because we, like many of you, are facing reforms at a level that is unprecedented. We have had the water reforms, we have reforms around the natural and built environment, we have reforms around rates capping. These are all coming at us and we're having to respond as well as go about our business as usual each day. So we also have set a priority area of financial discipline, and that means that every ratepayer dollar that comes into council, we want to know that it's spent well and wisely on behalf of our ratepayers. So that's something, those are the three key priority areas of council. That does not mean that wellbeing is not an incredible priority for every councillor, and that we want a place where people flourish and where the district does well. So that's just by way of brief introduction of where we're at as a council. I also want to acknowledge that today we are live streaming, so anyone who joins us on live stream, we welcome you. I'm not sure if there's anyone there, or people might watch us later. That's my introduction. Happy to take any questions, perhaps later in the meeting or after the meeting if you want to check any of that. But realising that some people have a few time pressures today and some people have to leave a bit earlier, Grant, I think, and Jackie, I'd like to welcome our first presenter, a really important and critical opportunity to have information from a new investment opportunity that's come to the district in the way of Project Lift. And Anthony Young is the chair of Horowhenua Trust, and he kind of, I think, spearheaded the process of application and worked in partnership with iwi partners and Horowhenua District Council and probably many of the organisations that sit around the table to get information that informed the application process. But Anthony is going to give us a presentation now on Project Lift, where you're up to, and aspirations for the future. Welcome, kia ora tātou.
There you go, you're live.
I'm live. Tēnā koutou, katoa, ko Anthony Young aho, he kaitiaki aho ki te Horowhenua o te roa te akitanga. So I'm Anthony Young, Chair Trustee at the Horowhenua New Zealand Trust. And look, I first want to say thank you for all the work that you do for our community. And I've had a little chance to be more exposed to some of the work that is being done by your organisations and others, and it's very inspiring and encouraging that we have people in our community that care so much about it. I want to give you an oversight just about what Project Lift is, and maybe a little bit about the process and what stage we're at in its development. So essentially the Horowhenua New Zealand Trust pitched for funding from the Social Investment Agency to invest in several youth impact programs. We identified 4 community-wide programs specifically that we felt could address the needs that the Social Investment Fund had asked for, and looking to partner with those organisations. And the trust role, the Horowhenua New Zealand Trust, this is sort of like a little bit outside of our wheelhouse. Our kind of primary goals have been to support economic development and of the community. So that's kind of been where we've come from, and a big part of it is trying to attract investment into our community, create jobs. But we saw this as an opportunity to attract investment at a different type of level. So that's that, and a little bit of sort of happenstance kind of got us involved in project, and a few conversations with people like Mark and others, that we became aware of this fund and that opportunity. So we decided to support it and help with the application of it. So just what the Social Investment Fund agency is, they had issued expressions of interest to fund 6 initiatives across the country, with the goal to have quite broad reach and impact of at least 250 individuals. Their funding ranged from $500,000 to $2 million a year across a 4-year period. So this is something that was made available across the country. It was a 2-step process, and in October we kind of issued an RFP. We literally had 12 days to submit something, so it was a really tight sort of from a standing start to the process. The Social Investment Agency, for this funding, identified 3 cohorts that were their focus. Children whose parents who are either currently or who have recently been in the correction system, children of parents who had experience in the care system, and then children that were stood down or suspended from the school system. So pretty much the real challenge, a lot of challenge youth in communities. And I mean, I won't get too much into the Social Investment Agency. They are a new agency, relatively new. They're probably only about a year old. They kind of have the goal of trying to aggregate across different agency and areas, I guess, and they have a very strong focus on this investment, and looking at how they allocate funding based on, we need to see outcomes, and that's the sort of thing that we're learning with them, as well as they want to learn from it, and are there programs that the different communities are involved with, can that be scaled? So that's what they are primarily looking at. And so we kind of pitched, unfortunately we're very proud of our district, but we have, some real challenges, which I don't need to sort of tell you about. And we sort of almost put up the case, look, there are some real challenges in our district with youth for lots of reasons. But that is the fact. In fact, we had, from their database, the worst school stand-downs in the country. And, in terms of those other 2 cohorts, obviously not, top 10 or bottom 10, if you like, of the districts. So we sort of proposed this program as kind of like a circuit breaker for it, and that we put that forward. And so kind of the role of the trust is essentially, is act as a bit of a local coordinator between this agency and really the people that actually can deliver and support the services. So kind of the way I see it is that our role is almost like a local funding agency. We're not into the delivery of it, but we hopefully will try to secure that funding and then make sure that the agency gets what they need to continue with that funding, and then work with with organisations and people in the community who have credibility and who are closer to the ground as opposed to sort of based in Wellington. So we talked about this quite a detailed RFP essentially before Project Lift. We use lots of fancy words because those are what kind of government officials like to see in RFPs. But we basically essentially said, look, yes, we can build programs to address those 3 cohorts, and we're going to partner with local organisations here that can deliver that and deliver what they need in terms of their long-term measurable improvement. So that's a real tough part of it. We are right in the midst of negotiating this with them and finding what their requirements are and expectations. So that process is sort of happening at the moment. It's to be honest, quite challenging because they're sort of saying we need to measure everything and we need to be very focused on these cohorts. So there were kind of essentially 4 programs that we pulled together and to address that. The first one, Te Tomokanga, was actually, I think, Matt Fraser from Manawatu College and Danielle with quite a lot of co-design from the community, developed this program essentially for youth who are either at intermediate school or primary, to have a place for them to try and keep them into the school system essentially. And so this was a program that was developed from something out of the Hawke's Bay that had been successful. They came to the trust probably a couple of years ago and said, look, would you support this? We said, yeah, get it going and tell us what you need. But they weren't able to get it up and going because they weren't able to get the funding that they needed from the Ministry of Ed. They got some funding, but not enough to run it. So it kind of sat there on the shelf in a way. And I remember that when this option came up, called Matt and said, hey, Matt, where did that Te Tomokanga thing go? And he said, yeah, look, we'd love to get that going, but we just need the money. I said, okay, if we got the money, could you sort of roll that out and even scale it up? And he said, yeah, that's something we absolutely need to do. So that was sort of the first program. The second one, trauma-informed practices. And I know Grant has been doing, actually all 3 colleges had their own kind of approach to handling kind of trauma-informed classes. It's staggering how much that has become so prominent in terms of, our students at our high schools. So we had a kind of conversation and said, look, what would it take to scale that up and to provide the funding? So, and I think for us to learn a bit more about that, and it's yes, there's elements of like a safe space and some teachers to help assist students affected, but also trying to bring a whole of school kind of approach to how to deal with trauma. And to do that region-wide across the 3 colleges. So so that was the second element of it. The third one was kind of an idea that we had put up and is still in development, but a kind of a Horowhenua boys and girls club type proposition. And essentially it's an idea that I saw when I was living in the US, where they have what they call these boys and girls clubs. They're essentially an after-school program, so that kids have somewhere to go. And this is sort of straight after school, and it's a place to sort of mentor and support and have a venue to go there. And there's quite a lot of data about it. We liked this program because it was, the other programs were sort of almost a bit like the ambulance at the bottom of a cliff. Something, okay, here's a problem we've got to address. Here's the answer. And we thought that the community needed sort of more of an early intervention type program at scale. So this was an idea that we discussed with Moapoku and said, look, here's an initial kind of what we've sort of pitched. It obviously needs to be developed for what's right for our community with its own kaupapa, but that was kind of hey, if we were to do something like this, what could it look like? And we included that in the proposal. And then the last one is like more kind of direct counselling support. So rather than reinvent, where we met with YOS and so said, okay, what could you do in this area? And went through a bit of a process with them to try and expand the service that's currently in place, particularly in support of counselling and advice. So we kind of put all those sorts of 4 pieces together into an overall program and pitched it, and there were 187 applications for this first round of funding, in which they ended up approving 7. The kind of feedback that we got, because we sort of asked, well, what sort of stood out? We were definitely the smallest district to apply for the funding. I mean, obviously there was a proposal from Northland, there was a proposal obviously in South Auckland, Tairāwhiti, etc. So quite big areas compared to the Horowhenua. And we said, sort of look, and they said there were two things that they really liked in our proposal. They liked the fact that we seem to be quite well connected as a community. And we talked about things like going back to the social sector trials, if some of you were around in those days. We talked about, the community wellbeing committee marks and said, hey, look, you need to know more about this. We've already have something really powerful in place that connects different agencies and organisations. Some of you asked, they actually had an interesting part of their RFP where they asked for people to go into their website and comment and provide feedback about who the trust and what you thought of us. So we didn't vet it. It wasn't sort of, they said like we wanted it. And so we got really good, we got probably about nearly 30 people, different organisations that kind of went on the process. So they really liked the community connectedness of our proposal. And they also liked our model a bit, because one of the things we sort of said, look, this funding isn't going to us. We're not applying for this funding to help us do something and do what we do. We're just going to be a middle person that gets the funding to the organisations that need it, and we're going to help you to determine how that works. And they quite like that model, because it's like there's no sort of vested interest from us other than what not there is for anyone, but we sort of said, look, sometimes what's the problem with the funding models is it actually disincentivises a lot of this sort of what you're doing here, because everyone's trying to get their funding from different same places and etc. So they quite like that separation and structure, and that we were independent and all those sorts of things, etc. So just a bit of feedback on that as well. So yeah, we put together kind of these four quite discrete programs, but we also said, look, there's value in the collective impact that these could also have, and we don't know what sort of impact that is, and they sort of said, yeah, that was interesting to them. So kind of what's next? We are in a real quite challenging period where we're trying to negotiate with and get that agreement there. We sort of said, when can we have the money? And they said, okay, do not commit anything, do not hire anyone, do not do anything until you have a signed agreement. So we're working through that. It's taking longer than we expected, but then we're going to sort of formalise some sort of governance structure to do that, put a kind of steering team together on that, and then we'll work through the reporting outcomes and what they need, and then look, I think partly develop some learnings for those models. So that's the stage that we're at. It's early days. It's a 4-year commitment, so that's pretty. We sort of see we're not interested if it's 1 or 2 years sort of thing, because why do something? So it's at least a 4-year commitment from the date of when the funding starts. So after that, we'll see. So yeah, that's probably all. Explains what we're trying to do.
Anthony, thank you so much, and thank you for presenting to community wellbeing, even though you're still at that stage of, finalising the whole funding package. But of course, the commitment is there from government, and you're working through that bit by bit. I think what's critical is that this has an impact on everybody that sits at this table, and the outcomes for good that we're all hoping for this district. And I know you said that as a trust and declaration, I formerly was a trustee, but stood down when I became a councillor, but you said you had no vested interest in the process, but I think anyone who sits here has a vested interest in the wellbeing of the district, and anything that can, make our outcomes better for employment, for living well, for having a good life is critical. So thank you for the trusted and taking that step on behalf of our community. Are there any questions, comments that people would like to ask of Anthony while he's here? And then we're quickly going to segue into our network thing know Grant has to go, but does anybody have a question for Anthony or comment or feedback? Most welcome. Councillor Mitchell.
I do notice for Grant here as well. Before I know you're about to leave as well, if you're going, what would be really helpful in terms of that trauma support is being, I think, overlooked a little bit at the moment is the trauma support that you need for your students from overseas. So there are a lot of students who will come. I'm Palestinian. My children at school during the genocide got very little trauma support. So looking a little bit further afield in terms of what students do you have from those multicultural communities and how that trauma actually changes and needs to change in terms of their support, because it's ongoing trauma. A lot of the wars are not getting any less, they're getting worse, and that has a huge impact on your children actually passing school or not, how they interrelate in the community, the refugee concerns that they might have. So it would be great to keep that in mind within your project.
And Anthony, if you don't mind, with that segue, if you like, I wonder, given that education is a huge part of Project Lift, and we have network feedback, and I know that you have an important assembly as the leader of your college. You need to be there for your rangatahi today, and this leave us, I think, in about 10 minutes. So I wonder, Grant, with that segue, if we could take from you the education and Horewhenua update and any insights you would like to leave the committee with today. Thanks.
Certainly. Thank you very much. And I'd start just by acknowledging Anthony and the work that he did to spearhead that. We get siloised in our schools. We get our heads down, we get working, and the support, sometimes to get things over the line, we need somebody from the outside just to pull us together. And you did it extremely well, Anthony, so I just acknowledge you and really appreciative. In regards to the absolute take your point too around the former refugee families coming in. Last year we had 17 Colombian former refugee students. This year we've got 13. As they came in, their level of English was extremely low, and we'd been pre-warned about the level of trauma, but we found that they settled in, they were amazing. And then they learnt to speak English, and they could communicate what trauma meant to them. So it took us 6 months for us to find out some of their stories. And we realised they'd been with us for 6 months, and we had no real idea about the level of trauma. When we started to hear the stories, that's when it impacted us. So just very quickly in response, we've employed, in fact we've had to employ for 30 hours a week and 52 weeks of the year at a certain rate to fulfil visa obligations, a Spanish-speaking person to sit alongside. She's speech-language therapist trained back in Chile, and she's extraordinary. We have another teacher who's just done his teacher training, who we've supported through, who's Spanish-speaking, so he can be a teacher alongside this teacher aide, and we've employed a Spanish-speaking counsellor for half a week. So that's all out of our staffing. At the moment it's for 13 students, but it shows the level of trauma that they bring with them. But it's ongoing, and I appreciate the comment, the question. In regards to Education Horewhenua, it's been going for some time. It's got a proud history of identifying region-wide initiatives or identifying need and stepping into the space to say, how can we help or who can help? We did start this year's meeting with just checking our relevance. We don't want to meet for the sake of a meeting, although it's very nice to see people and have a cup of tea. That's sort of, yeah. So we just stop and say, hey, are we still fit for purpose? And I think it was that comment I started with, that for all of us in education, things are so busy and there's so much churn and change that we can become siloised within our own school gates. And the opportunity that Education Horowhenua gives us is to meet outside of our gates and to ask questions that's community-wide. So to have council representation, business representation, ECE primary, secondary, as well as other social agencies as they're able, allows us to have conversations which are beyond our school gates. So for that reason, really useful. So we do feel that the purpose is still relevant. When there is nothing absolutely boiling and on the go, then it's a network and a catch-up. What's on the go at the moment is obviously the Project Lift, and that's pulled together those 4 strands, and that is taking up a lot of conversation in education at the moment. It's how to respond to the research that's coming out through neuroscience, which is explaining so much of what a growing number of our students are walking through the gate in the morning with. A lot of things in education for many years, we've scratched our heads and said, what's going on with that student? And yet neuroscience is explaining more and more what's going on. Interestingly, and this is something which really impacted me just recently, you can get 2 students who have gone through similar traumatic circumstances, and one of them makes their way in life and is successful, and the other one doesn't, and really becomes a statistic through the justice system perhaps. And the question is asked, is there a common denominator between these students who are able to make their way when potentially they couldn't have? And the thing which has come out is what trauma-informed practice has termed as an available adult. The person who is able to be there regularly, available, trusting, loving, consistent, is the difference between this one and that one. Bit in a nutshell and gross generalisation, but it means that if we could provide somebody in school who is that person for the students who would otherwise be on a process to crash and burn into the justice system, then that's an investment. And so we're still learning day by day. It's a steep learning curve. We've currently got, it's a homeroom, we've got 5 students in there, built up from 1 last week. So we're on our way through, and we'll build it up to a homeroom, and it's drawing kids out of their bedrooms in the community who would not otherwise get to school. So those things we're bringing to Education Horowhenua, and just chewing it around at a level where business can have input and ask questions, and it's really useful. The timings of our meetings, we're looking to have just 4 meetings a year, 1 week before this meeting. So that's our strategic intent, is connecting widely with the community, to be able to bring things from education to the wider group, because we really feel that council has got a vested interest, and we're delighted about that. The Kahui Ako, although that was disestablished on the 1st of January, we will continue it going in this region. So tomorrow, I think, we have a Kahui Ako principals meeting, half a day once a term, and we're just getting together with an agenda and staying connected, staying networked, and chewing over common things in education. It's to see if Education Horowhenua can provide opportunity for Kahui Ako principals to join, to hear a speaker to come in, or someone from the wider community to connect with education. So we would look to be the conduit between all of the principals across primary, secondary, and our connection with ECE with the wider community. So through Education Horowhenua linking with the council. So we see ourselves as a conduit, as well as a melting pot of ideas, as well as looking to support the initiatives that are community-wide.
Thank you so much, Grant. That's a very comprehensive, and I appreciate the committee giving us the leave to take that feedback from you ahead of you needing to leave. I think, thank you for testing the relevance of Education Horowhenua and establishing that it is a critical part of what we do with the wellbeing focus, and for not staying sideways and looking up and out at the broader issues. And I think that concept of an available adult is one that we can never underrate, can we? And the fact that it's being recognised through those models of trauma-informed practice and how we can make a difference. Thank you for bringing that to the table, and I think we'll probably hold on to that for the whole of this term of community wellbeing. It's a good gem to have. Around the table, before Grant has to leave us, are there any comments, questions? You're most welcome. Grant, you're happy to.
Just a question for you, Grant. Have the principals in Horowhenua thought about the Youth Worker in School project in previous years? So where a youth worker is based within the school to support and be that trusting adult for a wide number, and it's looking at that pastoral care wraparound as well.
Yes, Swiss workers are in some of the schools, although there's been some issues with funding around that and accessibility. Through Te Punawhai Mā Tauranga, there is a youth coordinator in each of the 3 colleges. So we have Rahini, she's with us. So she is not college employed, but she's based at our college. So she works independently to connect with youth. We've got 12 in our Dean team, and so there's an emphasis on pastoral care there. So yes, in short, is the answer. We would access any help we could would be offered. We also connect strongly with Mopoka Tribal Authority with their youth mentors and navigators. Yeah. Can I take my leave? Kia ora. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Earned it with your contribution today, Grant. Thank you for being here for the brief time you could spare. We really appreciate having Education Horowhenua and your lens of that with us.
No, thank you. I just value what the kaupapa of this meeting and council to step into this space. We're very keen to be in this space with you. So, kia ora. Thank you.
Okay, all the best with the assembly. Oh, Mike.
No, all good. I was just going to say, in terms of what Anthony and Grant presented, awesome work, Anthony, to get the funding. Well done. Really great stuff. And just following on from Grant, you're talking about the steering group, and you'll have some ideas about that, but be happy to talk to you about that. There's a number of people and agencies and key people that have been in Horowhenua, invested in Horowhenua, long time, been through social sector trials and others, so we would certainly be very keen to support and be around the table to make this a success in any way we can. So, yeah, just offer that.
Thank you, Mike. And that is the beauty of this network of people knowing who they are. I'm going to step back just for one moment because I'm about to introduce our community wellbeing report and the network reports, but Laura will be doing that. But before that, I thought it would be timely just to whip around the table because I know there are a couple of new people here, and as I said, there are some people sitting over there who are comfortably over there who will represent network reports. But just we had a little bit of a time constraint to get Grant through because he had to leave, and I know Jackie has to leave. So let's just go around the table and a brief introduction of your name and the agency or organisation that you represent would be wonderful.
Kia ora, ko Kelly Shanks tuku ingoa. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Sport Manawatu. It's lovely to be here. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou, ko Kylie Turu Whenua Tapsel toku ingoa, he uri ahau no Ngāti Rongo mai wahine me Ngāi Tūhoi. I'm the General Manager at Sport Manawatu.
Is it working?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lee McMakin. I am representing Community Corrections and I'm a senior practitioner there.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Alice and I'm the Democracy Support Officer and play the secretarial role for the Community Wellbeing Committee.
Thank you, and Ko Jo Mason tōku ingoa. I'm a councillor, Horowhenua District Council with a keen interest in wellbeing and community.
Kia ora, Mark Hammond, Community Facilities and Services Manager here at Horowhenua District Council. My role here is to support Councillor Mason.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Katrina Mitchell Kuta, tōku ingoa, and it's me, Katrina. I am a councillor here in Levin, first term councillor, but been very involved in community for most of my life. Very passionate about our wonderful community and bringing their voices to the table and ensuring outcomes, measurable outcomes, and future-looking success.
Kia ora, I'm Rebecca Kinlock, Community Development Engagement Manager at Kainora, based in Hunts North.
Morena koutou, ko Michael Fletcher tōku ingoa. I'm Lead Advisor, Regional Public Service for the Manawatu Wanganui area, which covers the whole of the Horizons Council area. So our role is supporting agencies. It's more about systems leadership and supporting agencies to do what they can together to achieve governance outcomes.
Kia ora koutou, ko Koimaka tōku ingoa. I'm Regional Commissioner Advisor of Administrative Social Development. We cover the Manawatu, Horowhenua, Otaki, Wairarapa and Tanahuru areas. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou, ko Simon Kwiti tēnei, no Marapupu Tribal Authority, e tūranga hau, te kaiwhakahaere matua ratonga, so the General Manager for Community Services and Operations. Ai, tātuko whenua, tātuko tangata, ka noho tātou, tātou e tātou, tēnā koe.
Kia ora tātou, ko Taranaki tōku maunga, ko Taranaki tūturu te iwi, ko Ngāti Kahumate tōku hapu, ko Matt Roberts ahau. So, good morning, my name is Matt Roberts. I'm the Network Coordinator for the newly established Manakai Network, and you'll hear from me a little bit later.
Kia ora, ko Laura Fisher tōku ingoa. I am the Community Development Advisor here at Horowhenua District Council. Say your name and where you're from.
Hello, my name is Leao, and I am a member of the Access and Inclusion Network.
Kia ora, my name is Keisha, and I'm here representing Youth Voice.
Good morning, my name is Emma Gowan, and I'm a Community Development Advisor also.
Kia ora tātou, ko Julia Atkins ahau. I'm the Community Development Lead here at Council.
Kia ora, Daniel Hague, Infrastructure Finance Group Manager.
Usually looks after our roads and water, but he's here today to make sure that community wellbeing is at the heart of Horowhenua District Council. It's lovely to have you all here and our visitors and the audience. But it's my pleasure now to invite, I think Laura is leading the introduction of the Community Wellbeing Network report, and that's the reporting of the network groups that feed into community wellbeing. Thank you, Laura.
If you didn't catch that, my name is Laura. Today we're going to provide a little snapshot of the activities across our community networks. Thank you to Grant for presenting on Education Horowhenua. So you'll hear directly from a couple of our representatives of the networks, and you'll also hear from me on behalf of those who have put through apologies. It's just to tell you a little bit about what's happening from October 2025 through to the end of January 2026. So I would like to introduce to you Leao. She is going to provide an update from Access and Inclusion Network.
Hi, my name is Leao, and I am a member of the Access and Inclusion Network. I've been doing an International Day of Person with Disabilities for 4 years. Even though last year was rainy, we had about 300 come through. I went around all the schools to see if they would hold a mufti day to raise money. We are already planning this year's Disability Day. The Access and Inclusion Network met on the 7th of October 2025. The group talked about wanting to support people with disabilities, but also the rainbow community. and people in our community who experience mental health challenges. A small working group will be set up to plan a diverse workshop in 2026. Digital access is very important to the network. Workshops will be held in 2026, especially about using the council's online community dictionary directory. The council's community wellbeing strategy says it's important for everyone to feel connected. Helping people use online tools means more people can stay connected, which is what the network is working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Lael. I will now provide a brief update on our Youth Services Network. So we had that meeting on the 23rd of October and that was hosted at Mash Trust. So we got to show a little bit of collaboration reflecting our Access and Inclusion Network and also the goals of our community wellbeing strategy. A highlight of that was having Sarah Parkinson's presentation on the Rider program. Not sure if anyone's heard of it, but it's all about the road safety initiative for 16 to 18-year-olds, so those brand new drivers. It equips the rangatahi with practical skills and strategies to make safer choices on the roads, and that also links back to our community safety in our strategy, which is great to have that with our younger people. So they do school-based learning, get into the schools, online modules, and are actually looking at NZQA standards to be offered, and that's going to be free in 2026, which is a huge tick with the schools. We also toured the Mash Trust facility. They have a green and a sensory room, demonstrating all the inclusive spaces that align with our strategy's commitment to being accessible and welcoming environments for all. And it was really great to see the crossover on how the networks can also collaborate. Overall, the meeting highlighted the inclusion, how youth-focused initiatives can help us build safer and stronger connected communities. And we're looking forward to seeing what actions and priorities they have in 2026. Ngā mihi. I would now like to introduce Keisha, who is going to give us a little update from Youth Voice.
Thank you, Laura. Kia ora koutou, my name is Keisha and thank you for having me here today on behalf of Horowhenua Youth Voice. At the end of 2025, the other Youth Voice members and I had an end-of-year get-together to celebrate our accomplishments and say our farewells to our outgoing members who were completing school, transitioning into university, moving out of the district, etc. We shared a meal and some laughs over Secret Santa, discussed our year and reflected on our achievements. And now with the loss of several members, we are in the process of devising a recruitment plan. Our number one priority in the first quarter of 2026 is a recruitment drive. What this will look like is establishing our next moves as a group and taking action as soon as possible towards the addition of several new members to the team, which we hope to accomplish at the end of March. We are looking forward to growing as a youth council to keep and expand the rangatahi's voice at the table and grow our connections within the council. Subsequently, we plan to do this by cultivating relationships with other youth councils and becoming deeply involved in the community to bring the rangatahi's voice back to the council to explore the ideas and needs and priorities of our young people and also growing our voice online. The Youth Voice social media is something that we are proud of, gaining almost 24,000 followers in under a year and having success with our online presence with our viral video reaching now 9.9 million views. On our Youth Voice Instagram, this is something we intend to grow this year, and by having access to it, we hope to double or even triple our successes from last year. In 2026, I especially want to take the Youth Voice to the next level with productive initiatives within our council to enhance our abilities, for example, leadership roles and responsibilities, which is something I am personally stepping into this year, and overall aiming to bring the ideas and concerns of our community's young people to the table, taking action on and creating opportunities while focusing on building our council's autonomy and youth leadership within our community. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, Keisha. I believe that you may have to excuse yourself to head back to school as well.
Keisha, I just want to acknowledge the contribution you've made today, taking time out of your important schooling and being here to give the voice of youth to this community is really critical. And as a former councillor, I've always appreciated having youth voice along to keep us grounded in what's important for the future. So we welcome you to attend Community Wellbeing, and thank you very much for that contribution today. Does anybody have any quick questions for Keisha before she goes? The other presenters, there'll be a chance for questions, but Keisha, I know you're on a time frame. Does anybody have a question or a comment? Apart from how good?
I'm pleased to now provide an update on our Older Persons Network. Our meeting was on the 30th of October 2025 and continuing its important role as a space for collaboration and the advocacy of older people in Horowhenua. A particular highlight this last quarter was the Age on the Go Expo, held on the 10th of October, and it was our largest event to date for Age on the Go, featuring 72 stalls, which was an increase from 14 the previous year. This growth is a strong signal of the value that the local organisations have here in connecting our community with our older people. There was actually some online discussion regarding the stall costs and how high that was, but it was clear that the cost was not a barrier with people wanting to be involved. Despite the lovely wet weather on the day, the attendance was really strong, steady, and we had some great feedback from the participants. A little change with the food situation as well, but that seemed well received with the food trucks. A little bit of a change can sometimes be quite a positive. The people appreciated the opportunity to connect and gather all the information. Some also had attended from other regions to see what we were doing and take that back to their councils. So that was really great feedback. The Horowhenua District Council has submitted an application on behalf of the Older Persons Network to the Office of Seniors Aid Friendly Communities Grant. This was an idea to produce some videos supporting a concept of ageing in place. While the application was not successful, the panel acknowledged the strength of the proposal. So this will be discussed further with the network to see if they would like to apply again in future. Finally, the network received updates from the different sector organisations who provided some insights into their current activities, as well as the issues and the barriers that they are all navigating. Overall, the continued growth of Age on the Go and the collaborative work that the Older Persons Network demonstrates is a strong commitment to supporting older people to live well, stay connected, and remain active members of our community, which is great to see. Ngā mihi.
Laura and Leal, thank you so much for those comprehensive pieces of feedback that accompany the reports that you've submitted to us. Really appreciate it. And in their absence, Grant and Keisha. And we have one more, former refugees. And that is...
I would just like to introduce Emma Gowan, who's going to report on our Horowhenua Former Refugees Support Committee.
Okay.
So I represent the council on the Horowhenua Former Refugee Support Committee. A bit like this committee, it's made up of representatives of all the organisations that support our former refugees in their first year of arriving in Horowhenua. And we had a major milestone at our last meeting before Christmas with 4 members of the former refugee community expressing interest in our joining our committee. It's been a long time coming, and we did plan just to recruit one or two, but we decided to appoint all 4 because they had put their names forward. They represented a great
cross section of the community, youth, male, female, Colombian and Venezuelan, and watch this space because hopefully they will be, if the long-term plan is for them to come and speak to their report and the committee's work. But it'll be really great to finally get their voice on our committee. As a committee, we've been making decisions for the last 3 years that, be scarce in what we think they need. But it'll be great from here on out getting to hear exactly what they need from us. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emma. And we have one more report that's not tabled here, but Mark's going to introduce it.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mason, and through you. I'm just mindful that members around the table, there was some conversation regarding the Mana Kai initiative, and so Matt, I am going to put you on the spot and hoping just to get, knowing how important access to kai in our community is, and we've heard that from our agencies today, that is still a trend. We're fortunate enough in Arohi to receive funding to be able to carry out some work, and so Matt, I was hoping you might be able just to provide a brief update for the table about where we're at with Mana Kai, what are the next steps, etc.
Absolutely, more than happy to talk about what we're up to. So just quickly, a bit of background before I get into it. So this came about from a need to tackle high cost of kai, issues we're all pretty familiar with. A few important distinctions is this is a regional strategy, so it's Horowhenua wide. It's led by community and owned by community. I'm in a very privileged position to connect with just about every community po. So what I'm hearing influences very heavily on the work that I do day to day. So it's just to ensure that their voices lead to tangible outcomes. A lot has happened since we last met up last year. When Mana Kai was initially in the forming stages, we had a narrow lens, I should say, of what tackling kai insecurity would look like. We've since broadened that view to encapsulate a food system view. It's pretty much felt by most in the network that mainstream kai systems no longer aren't really human-centered, if you will. They don't really prioritise well-being, so that's something we'd like to address through kai sovereignty. All that really is localising, growing, producing, processing at a local level. So I'll talk to some of that in a moment. So it's a 12-month pilot, so there's a need to do some quick wins and lay the groundwork for year 2, year 3. Everything will go well, I assure you. Quick wins, speaking to that just quickly, over the school summer holidays, we did 4 breakfast club events, partnered with Te Tākere, the youth space, pancakes, eggs, bacon, etc. Over that period through Levin, Shannon and Foxton, well over 200 tamariki and rangatahi that we served. We stopped counting because it was at stages it was too many to count. Piggybacking off that with the learning for reading for bees, sorry, I should say, provided us with a platform to do some workshops around growing kai. So sunflower seeds, how to plan their own garden background, colouring in cutouts, that kind of stuff. Seed bombs, so if you're not familiar with seed bombs, if you see something that's looking particularly desolate, they're little seeds encased in a bit of soil and some clay. You throw them in, next rainfall, you'll get wildflowers in a couple of weeks or 2. And I've got some photos which I wanted to share, but I'll save that for another time. Someone's actually gone and done that, which is pretty cool. Henimoa House, we've just put in our first orchard. 20 trees went in September, and the next planting season we'll put in another 20 more. To Tautoko Access and Inclusion, the Uniting Church run an ADEPT program, support for neurodiverse. There's a young gentleman there has aspirations into landscaping, so we're giving him a space to build those skills up and help him on that journey. To enable some of our community to get them growing, we've established a seedling, mulch, soil and planter box resource bank. No strings attached. Come and talk to us, then we'll go out, deliver, help them grow it. Some after support care. So with Sharon over to my right here, we've just delivered in 6 home backyards in Shannon, and there's 52 more in the pipeline. And that's not even promoting it, just quietly, hey, I hear you doing something. And so we're going to grow that list pretty quickly, I suspect. So far, there's over 30 organisations working in this kaupapa. One in particular is the EnviroSchool program, which almost all schools in Horowhenua are a part of. So they've gotten wind of what we're doing, so I've been invited to talk to the Kahui Ako collective tomorrow. Some of the things that we're going to touch on, growing kai is an easy one to support the lunch programs, but we're particularly interested in developing some enterprise solutions. So some of the things we're going to talk to, a student cafe. I've got 2 processing kitchens, commercial grade, that are sitting idle. We're going to have a discussion around, okay, let's put some students in there. If they've got their MATA up and running, that will feed into their cafe, keep those costs down as low as possible. So that's a really cool one that I'm interested in. Taking more of a technology angle. So these gardens, we can teach them to make garden sensors. So I'm an engineer by trade, telecommunications, so I've got a natural affinity to this kind of stuff. We'll get them making the sensors. Eventually we'll take them to building AI modelling sensors, so using rain, sunlight, moisture levels, soil conditions. We can start to build an accurate picture of what's happening in our many microclimates, that is Horowhenua. Countless times I hear it's pouring in Foxton. I'm over in Oahu. It's beautiful and sunshine. So it'd be a really cool picture of what's actually happening. I've got a good friend in the Climate Change Commission. He's indicated that'd be a data set that they'd be interested in looking at also. Parents here will know that Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft are a big part of their lifestyles. So we're going to consider this live data that's coming out of the MATA. We can overlay a gaming engine over the top of it. So it's feeding in live data so they can see graphically what's happening to just boost engagement and interest in gardening. So we're bringing both the virtual and the physical world together. We're preparing for the delivery stage, partnering with Ruapoko to deliver a service for Hokio. Hokio Beach is a high area of need and support. No food outlets out there. 30% are in full-time position, full-time work. The median income is $27,000. So we've identified some really quick wins of how we can deliver kai lines out to them, partnership with Hope and Ruapoko in that space. Continuing with the tech, I know AI has a so-so reputation amongst everyone, from what feedback I'm hearing. Some really cool things I guess you're not really hearing is you can create localized offline agents that can be very specific to any particular function that you want it to do. How I'm going to perhaps utilize it is with grocery spending and nutritional outcomes. So without a team of mathematicians, an AI grocery agent can help me identify, okay, cool, this is their spend, this is what they're buying, this is the nutritional dietary intake they're likely to get from that. So one, we can tell, okay, cool, in those accessing food support, where are they likely to be deficient, so we can help them be a little bit more surgical in the response that they provide. Building on that, we've had some conversations with employers around building early detection of CHI insecurity. Varies, it's very dynamic, it's always shifting because so is people's individual income situations. So that's another initiative I'm really excited about, because when you think high security, you tend to think high needs, but there's also lower needs that can be addressed through this modelling that we will get up and running. I guess the biggest takeaway I'd like you all to have today is to look at CHI support beyond a charitable response. Outside of housing, a poor diet drives poor productivity outcomes by just about every measure. Quick little example: 3/4 of chronic disease, so heart disease, diabetes, cancer, extend from poor diet. Let's put a monetary value on that. $2.2 billion annually spent by the Ministry of Health on diabetes alone. A balanced diet will actually tackle that. So I would encourage you, just be open-minded in how we think of delivering CHI to our whānau. That pretty much concludes my presentation today. I've sparked interest in how CHI could be utilised in your spaces. Very approachable, very flexible. It's always a yes and from me, never a no but. So you will be able to reach me.
Thank you, Matt. I think I expected your presentation to be focused on where we've kind of got stuck in what we think is a solution of food banks and funding, and the donations we make to food banks, but to step it right back to what, where can we start this process of having an impact on CHI security? And it's with tamariki, it's with whānau, and it's together. Thank you. That's been great for me to learn today. Really appreciate that update of hearing where Manukau is at and looking forward to see how it grows. So I want to thank all of you who have brought us the network reports today. It's been incredibly helpful, insightful, and a lot of learning, I hope for all of us. But what I'm going to do now is give the table the opportunity to ask any questions, points of clarification, or comments to the reports that we have in front of us.
Thanks, Councillor. Just for the former Refugee Support Committee, just we might be interested to know, from an MSD perspective, 20% of the Koina refugees that come into New Zealand go into Palmerston North, Lothian and Masterton. And it's something that we are well aware of. We recognise, there's a growing number of former refugees that are on benefit, and Palmerston North, we're certainly seeing that longevity play out. Just for this group, we are at the moment working through a process where we are going to implement a placement service for former refugees, targeted more once they've finished the normal induction period, the Red Cross Pathways to Implement kind of process, with a focus of trying to, support the aspirations of former refugees. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be able to share that. But we're looking for partners in Palmerston North and Levin specifically, that we will obviously work with in terms of implementing that. So just, for the group. Thank you.
Thank you. That's important and exciting news. Are there any other comments or feedback or questions for our network presenters?
I just want to say well done to everyone. They were really great updates. It's good to hear, and you can really hear the passion in what you're talking about. And I love how you're using the technology and with it as well. Sort of that reaches the kids and everyone really. So even though AI scares me, but I think I'm up to co-pilot. That's about as good as it gets. But well done. Yeah, and it's nice that you're taking it one step further of learning how to cook, and it's all very well to grow, but we can put beetroot in a chocolate cake, or we can, there's ways you can bulk things up with good vegetables. So well done.
I just want to say I'm blown away by your update in terms of the holistic approach that you're taking, the absolute incredible creativity that you have brought to this table, but perhaps most importantly, the grassroots understanding and the community outreach. And it's really important, I guess, for me as a councillor in council to understand that there are so many organisations that are already working, that are already on the ground, that we don't need to reinvent the wheel, that all we need to do is understand who they are, what they need, ensure that that communication between them is strong, that support between them is strong, and that we support you and support them, because this is what will change our community. This is what we need. You know what we need, and we need to know how to support you. So, and I just love the fact that the cost of living crisis is a massive issue for most people. And that sustainability that you're bringing to that, because lowering the price of food at this point in time is just not going to happen. But in planting those trees and trying to create that sustainability for individuals it's just wonderful to see. So thank you very much. It's really, really positive, and very impressed.
Thank you all. And with that, the recommendation is that report 26/18 Community Wellbeing Network report be received and noted, and we note it and receive it with much appreciation. It's now my pleasure to introduce Emma Gowan again, who will be leading the Community Wellbeing Dashboard report. Thank you very much, Emma.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm just going to ask that my report be taken as read, and if anyone has any questions on the dashboard and any of the data that we provided.
Yeah, and through you, Councillor Mason, if I may, I know that when we present the dashboard, it's well received, but I'm also mindful that, and I just want to put the caveats in the report, that the data that's in this is the data that we have access to like members of the public, and I'm mindful that members around the table may have updated data or information that they may wish to speak to. You don't need to, but I'm just mindful, I want to put the caveat there that we're very well aware that sometimes there's a lag in the data that we present. But yeah, as Emma said, happy to take any questions through you, Councillor Mason.
So we'll take the report as read, but invite any questions from the table on the report.
Kia ora koutou. Just a question from MTA regarding the health and wellbeing section of the dashboard. We're referring to cigarette smoking specifically, and cessation and the uptake of vaping in its place. Now, we have the dashboard data, but it's just information. Actions arising from understanding this information, we'd really like to know what the council's position is on it, specifically the number of vape stores and accessibility to vapes for people who are either in a cessation journey or who are taking up vaping as a first point into their kia ora.
Smart.
No worries. Kia ora, and thank you for the question, and for you, Councillor Mason. You're absolutely right. The dashboard's purpose is to provide data and information, and it's the committee's role to absorb this information and to understand actually what actions can come from this information. So it's a really great question. This committee in the past has considered vaping and smoking data, and as a result of that, a report has fed up to the council table in the past triennium. From memory, that what that resulted in was a conversation with our elected members at the council table, and I believe that the policy, our council smoke-free and vape-free policy, was updated to make sure that it included the concerns being raised about the number of vape stores in Horowhenua. I need to be careful because it's not my role, as I'm not in the regulatory function, but unlike my colleagues, what I would say is a lot of it is governed by central government in terms of the laws under Te Whatu Ora and health, etc. Council has limited role that it can play in the regulatory space. But I suppose to assure you and the committee that the council table, as far as I'm aware, are very much aware of the rise in vaping in particular, and I think that's been considered when we're doing some of our planning work. It's definitely sitting on the table of community development. So I don't know if that's helped answer. I haven't given you a specific what's happened, but I can tell you that through this committee, through this channel, it has fed up to the council table.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mark. And I think what would be helpful to see along the data that we have there, that's just but is also to understand impact of the uptake of vaping across Aotearoa, so that we can start to feed that back and to use it as a lever potentially with our regulatory bodies, so that they understand the impact that their decisions are having on our communities potentially. Kia ora.
Noted. Thank you, Simon. And I know that Mōpuku do have a strong focus on cessation of smoking, and I think vaping sits alongside of that. And, you know, we talk about the issues that face our community, food insecurity and that sort of thing, and when addiction issues also sit within that, we are equally challenged to think about what we can do. Council has very few regulatory powers. You know, in days gone by, we introduced the local alcohol policy where it gave us regulatory powers to where bottle stores could be located, and so that's something that I think I'll take away from this to go and have a look at and consider that paper that came to council. I appreciate that, Simon. We'll perhaps come back to community wellbeing on that matter. With that, the recommendation is that we receive the Community Wellbeing Dashboard Report and received and noted. And then I would like to invite Emma to introduce the Strategy Monitoring Report now. And I will take this as read as well. Thanks, Emma.
But again, invite any questions. Obviously, we haven't met since August, but we haven't, in this report, we haven't documented since everything from August. We've just documented the last quarter.
I'll invite Mark to also give a brief update.
Yes. Sorry, committee, and for you, Councillor Mason. We say report is read and then you've got me giving you an update. And I'm very mindful of that. But I do want to provide some context because I do feel it's helpful. And when we do present this report, one thing that I do say is this is some really neat stuff. This is some great stuff happening in our community that's contributing to what the purpose of the community wellbeing strategy is. And I'm mindful that officers today have provided copies of the community wellbeing strategy for those who have not seen it or read it. I suppose, Councillor Mason, for you, I suppose one thing I just want to highlight is in terms of the monitoring report itself, and I'm looking at the table with the actions underway, we're doing really well. What I would suggest is that we have to deliver a community wellbeing strategy and action plan in an environment where local government is undertaking reform and priorities around where local government's heading. And so there's a couple of items on there, for example, that may not have started, and that's because we're trying our best to do it within the means of where we can. And so in saying that, year 2 is looking very good in terms of our action plan around community wellbeing, but I just wanted to provide that context that when the community wellbeing strategy was adopted, it was adopted, I suppose, a different environment to what we're operating in now. And so we're pivoting a little bit to make sure that we can still deliver those outcomes the best we can. And I just wanted to provide that context for the committee, but also assure the committee, because the purpose of this report is to hold us accountable, assure the committee that officers and council are working really hard to achieve the outcomes of year 2 of the strategy.
Thanks for that background, Mark. I appreciate that, and I don't know that there's anybody in the room who's not pivoting in their workplaces right at the moment, given the environments that we face. But there is a chance if anybody has a question, comment, or a point of clarity that they'd like to ask officers of the monitoring report. Okay, we'll take the recommendation that we accept, receive and note the monitoring report and look forward to the next committee meeting when we will have, we are established now as a new committee for this triennium, to the next monitoring report and to see year 2 doing really well and some more tracking reporting on that. The final report of the day is one that I had the chance to talk to officers about, and one that they were really interested in bringing to the table for your consideration today. And it's to give some thought to the direction of travel of the Community Wellbeing Committee, and to perhaps have some focus for what we're doing over this next year at least, and potentially into the triennium. And to give some priority ratings to what we're doing as a committee. So we have the direction of travel report that highlights some potential areas that we could think about focusing on. So I'd like to invite Mark now to introduce the report that is before you, and then we will have the chance to discuss, take any questions, and consider the recommendations that sit alongside it. So Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason, and through you. I'm going to encourage the committee to hopefully have some good discussion regarding this particular item. It's not a standing item that you would normally have in front of this committee. I'm only going to make some opening comments and then, open to discussion. Like I said, would encourage that. Members around the table will know that the Community Wellbeing Committee has gone from strength to strength in terms of the reporting, the attendance, but also the conversation, the discussion, and the outcomes that have happened over the last 12 months. I suppose officers are putting in front of you, we're in a new triennium in terms of from a council perspective, which allows the opportunity for some focus and a really clear laser focus on what the committee can achieve at the time that we're here. We have identified through the data that we've constantly looked at, through the conversations that have happened at this table, and from what we hear for our community networks like we've heard today, and we have identified some focus priorities, and if the committee were to endorse or support those priorities, what it means is that for officers we can tailor the content or the conversation at this table, but also allow agencies to be able to go away and see how they can contribute to those particular priorities rather than being broad. And we know that if we can be broad, we might lose focus a little bit. And so the intent here is to have a bit more focus. The themes that have been identified because of that information we know is around connected community. And there's more detail obviously in the report. Emergency preparedness. I probably don't need to speak to the two significant weather events we've had over in the last couple of months. Health, which constantly is discussed, employment, and homelessness and vulnerable housing, all themes of which we've actually already heard today in this meeting. And so keen for the committee, for you, Chair Mason, to discuss that, see if that sits right, and also, I suppose, in the report it identifies some of the potential committee roles that can be played, can be made, and then therefore, if that's adopted, it just means that we can tailor-make the content for the committee. Hopefully I've explained that well enough. I'm happy to take any questions and be part of the discussion.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate the officers bringing this report to the committee, and as new as I am as chair in this role, I like all of you, had the benefit of reading this report ahead of time, and I guess some of it is it's about time and place. It's about the importance of issues that are, I guess, being raised to us as a community, and that what we know, and we actually heard from Grant today, one valuable adult in your life can make a difference, but that sense of isolation and lack of connection can cause all sorts of harm. And so each of us are here today to try and consider how our organisations are delivering all the funding that our organisations, your organisation, have, are making that difference. So that priority of connected community sits there as potentially a first priority for the committee. The concept of emergency preparedness. And can I say, there is a challenge for us as a council when an event happens, and often council, my experience has been that council is seen as all things to all people, and that we need to fix stuff for people when, you know, we're an affected party too, and there are things, that obligations we have, which is around infrastructure and ensuring that's happening, but also looking after our community as best we can in connection with all of community. But what I'd like to see, what I'd like to support is seeing that we have a focus on understanding that our community is strong enough to get through an emergency situation, and that we have a focus on encouraging people to be well prepared in the event of something going wrong. We've had 2 events this year, you know, one over New Year, which was a wind event, and people lost power for up to a week in our district, and then we had another one just last week, beginning of last week, that was again really difficult weather event and resulted in people having disruption to their lives. So it's about how we best prepare people for that, and the messages we send as a collective of people who want wellbeing of the community, but what we as council do to support that. Health, we know that's a challenge. We know that recruitment and retention of medical practitioners who can deliver a high level of service in our district is forever a challenge, but I think in talking to other agencies, and I had the chance to talk to Jackie, and she talked about the recruitment of social workers who are able to work in a statutory environment is always a challenge, and I know that at the most recent Older Persons Network Committee, the police reported that they hold a number of vacancies that they're unable to fill locally, and so how is it that those agencies and those organisations have, thanks Jackie, harera, that we are able to ensure that we have a strong workforce locally. I know it's a national problem, but we're thinking about our district. So that's that health category could be broadened out to think about how we have how we attract people to the district. And employment, our statistics aren't great. We don't feature well in employment statistics, but we have some programs in the pipeline to think about what that will be. But employment, again, is a critical part of wellbeing. And the conversation that we've had around homelessness and vulnerable housing and how we make that a priority around wellbeing. So I look forward to your comments. You're well more experienced and well more versed than I am, and you are long-time community wellbeing members. So I'm looking forward to your feedback as to whether these priorities land and whether we think about them as priorities for community wellbeing, and or have we missed something and need to add it in. So.
Kia ora. This is fabulous work. And I think you're right. You know, you try and do everything and then you can't go deep with things. So I think it's really good to have priorities. My previous role that I used to have is actually working for Te Whatu Ora, so I have a strong health background as well. And what I would say around the health one is it's very pleasing to see, obviously, physical activity in there. I really think about the prevention side of staying healthy and well. And I think the Kai security conversation that we had, I think it's about healthy eating and staying active. And therefore, that has a systemic change in regards to driving that notion of then people not having to seek necessarily that care. So as a prevention strategy, I think we need to be careful not to focus all our efforts in regard, I'm not saying that, but all our efforts in regards to the end of the cliff. It's the prevention side, and actually how can we shift a generational change through connection to the community, through culture, through Kai, through being physically active. So it's really pleasing that's in there, but I didn't, unless I picked up, see the Kai side in there. But yeah.
That's a good point. I think we might include that as an important addition to the health. Yeah.
I wonder where youth sits in this, and I know it's been a long-standing focus, but we have the opportunity through Project Lift, and I wonder whether youth then should be a focus, bearing in mind we have the opportunity to do the very best through that project. Unemployment's in there, but it's particularly youth unemployment. So I wonder whether the employment one becomes a subset of the of youth, because it would be a pity to have all of these focused areas have Project Lift and not do everything we can as a community and as Community Wellbeing Committee to support that, making sure that we're in line with that. We've also, and just to throw in the mix, we've also talked about community safety, family harm is still being a very, topic, I was going to say, a very high priority in the community. And we've kind of focused our efforts on that before, and I know there's some things going on, but I just wonder where that sits in the mix in terms of community safety. We know a lot of things that are happening, a lot of things in the schools, and that are a result of family harm and the trauma that's coming from that. So I just throw that in for discussion as well.
So, Mike, you think it's worth adding a sixth layer, which is about safety and wellbeing, and addressing or giving attention to community safety and with a focus on family harm and. Please do, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. I think really good questions and good points. I wonder if I'm just on the fly here, so bear with me. This is workshopping live. I wonder if it's a connected and safe community, and because some of the themes in connected is around actually feeling safe and connected, and some of what we're seeing in there, such as the scams, which is high, and there's some other bits and pieces in there that I wonder if the safety bit falls in there, and I'll let you think about that just for a moment. For the first point you raised regarding rangatahi and young people, we haven't gone into the different demographics for each of those topic areas, but what I could probably reassure you was that if we were to come and talk back, for example, about health, we would probably talk about the different demographics that are impacted. So if at one of the meetings it had a health focus, for example, we would make sure we talk about how are young people accessing health services, and likewise the employment piece versus young people, the NEET rates, etc. Would that be helpful, or do you still see it as
helpful if alongside what we're doing in the priority areas, we hear regularly from Anthony and Andrew and the team about how the project is going and how the wider agencies and community can kind of continue to support that with maybe any areas they have, any barriers, anything that we can help just as they move along. I think it is probably safe and connected community because that brings in some of those other elements as well. And I'm conscious that we don't want to go to 8 or 9 areas because we defeat the purpose, right? We want to have a few areas that we focus on that enable us to target kind of our resources. So
I think that's really helpful, and that's important feedback. And so with that, I think recommendation that comes from you, Mike, and with presenting to the table, Anthony, I wondered if we could the recommendations that there's recommendation A1 that in 2026 the focus areas are connected community, emergency preparedness, health, employment, homelessness and vulnerable housing, and we make it connected and safe communities, and that we note the key focus of addressing the demographics and with a particular focus on youth. I wonder if I can add an A2 to that recommendation. That would be, and Anthony will correct me if he thinks I'm out of line, that a representative of Project Lift become a member of the Community Wellbeing Committee based on your recommendation, Mike. I put that to the table as A2 of the recommendations. So is there any other discussion or feedback on this report?
Sorry. Just a question around, so with our networks that we have at the moment, the streams that come off Wellbeing Committee, is the intent that they would then change into these priorities or that they would still be maintained?
Yeah, kia ora. Just on emergency preparedness, and I see everything here as a response to an emergency as opposed to our preparedness is about how good your go bag is currently. And coming from National Red Chair Forum in February at Waitangi, the discussion there was from people who had been exposed to these extreme weather events, from Tairāwhiti specifically, and also from Wawa and Tauranga One, is that actually there is a piece here around how we prepare the ground prior to an event, and where council can influence what happens in and around our infrastructure, what you can do in relation to consents for planting, those types of things. That's preparedness beyond your go bag. And so we would be really interested to see what that looks like. I guess give the example of our arterial route being shut down by trees coming down over the road. And the north of Foxton. So trees coming down over State Highway 1 because of their proximity to the road. What does that look like in the future? And have we assessed those pieces? And are we doing something about them? Kia ora.
Thank you for raising that, but it's before the go bag, and perhaps Mark can make a comment.
Yeah, I think it's a really valid point, and I'm just mindful of the purpose of this role probably is around the people and the community aspect, but in saying that, noting that the community is impacted by those physical, I guess, barriers or planning elements. It's a really valid point, one that I'm happy to take away and speak to my colleagues about, and I can probably provide an update at the next committee meeting if there's any update from that. But I don't want to also take away the point that I just made around it. And I understand that people are impacted by those physical things, but our intent here is probably around what can we do with our communities.
Yeah, and the point of the comment is that actually we've learned from Tairāwhiti and those other places that the impact is significant, even though it doesn't appear to be on the surface right now. Only other point I'd add to that is the preparedness of some of our community spaces and places to provide really good support. E.g. our maraes. We have a marae that can house 200 people and can cook for 400 if that's required, and where we sit in that space and how we connect our people with that as well. Kia ora.
I think that's a really important comment, and it's a broad issue. And I know in this last event, council closed, or they couldn't officially close, but put up safety signs for Kimberley Reserve, closed Kimberley Reserve, but also put up safety signs in conjunction with Horizons on a piece of river area that they were concerned about the overhang, because so there's always, there's a whole range of issues about emergency preparedness, and I guess it's also making sure that people know that we're open to hearing if they think there are trees that are potentially damaging. Is it us, Horowhenua District Council? Is it Katahi NZTA? Is it, making sure those channels are readily acknowledged. So good conversation. So
sorry, it's a different subject to this, but maybe like your conversation's better, like the Horizons Emergency Management meeting that's regularly happening. I mean, that's covering all these regions, isn't it? Maybe there's something where some people, like, you should maybe be around that table where this conversation's happening. It's about being prepared and things like that. And then at least you know who to contact when something happens as well. There's a network happening and it sort of stood straight up. So, yeah.
I guess I brought it here because we know there's going to be change in the regional council space. So.
That's another one of our issues coming down the pipeline of reforms. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that I appreciate those, your concerns that you brought forward, and I think this is where it's wonderful around the table to understand where we can support each other and what networks are actually out there, so that we can strengthen each other and have those conversations and ensure that the community as a whole is included in that. So I think that's where that value lies, is having that voice from those different areas that we can say, okay, what do you need? And yeah.
for that around the table? Anybody against or no? The other recommendation that I'd like to put is that, suggested by Mike, that a representative of Project Lift become a member of the Community Wellbeing Committee once they have commissioned their contract and have their people in place. I'll put that to the table for acceptance. Anthony, you're happy to accept that on behalf of Project Lift? Thank you. Do you know, that's brought us to the direction of travel of the conclusion of the meeting, unless there are any other items that people wish to present or updates that you feel you haven't been able to give as part of the formal body of the meeting. Well, can I say thank you so much to our networks, to our Community Wellbeing Agency representatives, to officers, to visitors. We really appreciate you all being here. I cannot overstate how important this is and how these reports are so valuable to Council and the work of community wellbeing and the work that you do, acknowledging, I think Anthony, when he started his presentation, acknowledged the great work that is done and the continuing support you have for HDC and the Community Wellbeing Committee of Council. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for making my first meeting absolutely enjoyable. I really appreciate it, and I'll be able to report back to me, Bernie, that there were no fights. It was all fantastic. Well, I hope so. But thank you so much, and let's close now with karakia, and you're most welcome to stay for a kai and a cuppa if you don't have to rush back to your places of work and solve the problems of the world in your car. So our ending karakia, kia whakaria te tapu, kia waitia e te ara, kia tūturiki a whakataha ai, kia tūriki whakataha ai, haumea hi tai kia. Kia ora ta.